Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host.
Heather Baker.
Yeah, and we are here to talk with ELSKA. Welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you too.
Yeah, it's always nice to catch up with all the things that you are doing. And for folks who haven't listened to our interviews with you before or are not aware of your music, just tell us a little bit about yourself to get started.
The first recording project that I was a part of was one that I had the pleasure of talking with both of you about, which was the hashtag #MeTooMinneapolis record, which was a compilation record of a bunch of women, femmes from the metro area, and all kind of talking about the Me Too experience in their own capacity, in their own terms. And then shortly after that, I released my debut solo record, On the Shoulders of Giants, which was actually the track that I had contributed to that project. And now we've got another batch of songs slowly getting ready for the world to hear, one in particular that I'm very eager to talk about, called Bounty Hunter.
Good. Well, and I talked just a little bit about On the Shoulders of Giants because it's a nice segue to the latest one because I mean it's a beautiful song. It's one of those even for me it's a tearjerker. It is such a it's a so for just tell us a little bit about the song because as I said I think it is a nice segue to the new material.
Yeah, so with the prompt of broadly of Me Too, um, I decided to go in a direction that was a little bit more about how things got to be or how we came to be where we are right now, specifically in terms of what the generations of women before us did to allow for us to have the movement of the Me Too movement, to have that be heard and received in the way that it was. So my uh, mother and grandmothers were both very strong women who raised us in a specific way to speak up and be strong and all of these things. And so it was an kind of an homage to them, and then also to lift up this kind of sisterhood of people sharing their stories and speaking up, and to just kind of create this community to honor those who are doing really difficult work even now.
It's what I thought was so generous about it is that I it's we can get frustrated with the way things are today, but they're better than they were yesterday.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways we've made a lot of progress. In some ways, I get a little nervous about that progress being in jeopardy, hence the new song.
Yes.
But but still, I mean, we are in a different place, and that's largely in thanks to the women that came before us. So.
Yeah, that is the beautiful. Well, and that kind of leads us to I think we're all a little bit afraid of what's going to happen. So you have a song with you generously let me use for the Women's March for a conversation on abortion rights. I think even before it was released, and it was very well received by the folks in the Zoom. I'll say, but you have a song, Bounty Hunter. Tell us a little bit about it.
So okay, where to begin? Okay, so its inspiration came specifically from the Texas Heartbeat Act. Now, I live in Minnesota. I'm largely unaffected by what happens in Texas, but it was a really public and specific way of targeting women in need of abortions and seeking to exercise their right to choose. And I was appalled that the Texas legislature essentially deputized their citizens and targeted those who were helping these women exercise the right. Friends getting them to appointments, healthcare providers specifically, and then if convicted, these bounty hunters were then awarded not less than $10,000 is how the language is in the actual act. And that just made me all kinds of hot and fiery inside. So that was how that song got into motion, I guess.
It sets the stage for witch hunting like we haven't seen since the Salem trials. I mean, because there's no penalty if you're wrong.
Right. And it's this kind of Wild West mentality of like just kind of go after each other. And I can't imagine what women must be feeling specifically in Texas. And now since the Dobbs decision, we're seeing these kinds of things all over the country. And so we had written that song as a response to that specific piece of policy. And then the production we kind of expedited as soon as the leaked opinion arrived. We were like, okay, well, this is the time and place for this music. And so we hustled through it and released it on streaming platforms shortly after the official decision came down.
And you've got a video that's coming out on September 16th.
Yes. Yeah. That the video is what I mean. I love the song and I love the music, and I'm very proud. Owen Sartori is my co-songwriter and producer, and we worked very hard on it. And I love it, but it is so meaningful with the video. So the video is an effort to kind of explain what's going on in the song. The song is a little bit dramatic and kind of I think people can get the gist of what's going on, but the pictures and the footage that's in the video helps really explain the significance of what we're dealing with here and calling out specifically the people that are putting women in jeopardy.
It is good.
Oh, I was just going to comment on the soldiers of, why can't I say that word? Soldiers on Giants and Bounty Hunter. You have such an elegant way of singing, and you know the sound of it, but paired with the fierceness of the message. You know, I think it's a great way to create conversations that are hard for people through listening to your music and kind of breaking it down to bite size.
I really appreciate that. That is the goal. I worked in education for a while before I went to music full time. And when I decided to make that decision, I really wanted the music that I was singing, creating, to have some kind of impact. And I feel very passionately about all of these things. And so if it can be a way to open up conversation or to fire people up to get engaged, that's the goal. So I appreciate that very much.
I think there are certainly elements of the video that are, if you could put footnotes in a video, you know, you've got direct quotes from people with pictures of them. And I was going to memorize some of those quotes, and I thought, why do I want to memorize, you know, but but people say things you can't believe.
Right. And that, I think the biggest motivating factor for including specific people in the video was to hold them accountable. And like, these are things that cannot be unsaid, and you are a representative and you are an influential person and you are actually creating policy that has a huge effect on people. Let's make sure that people know exactly what it is that you're saying and how you are representing women.
Yeah. There's no mistake.
And also like with the Dobbs decision and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it is the time for difficult conversations and fiery emotions in videos is now. And I'm not going to be mincing words about how I feel about these things. And I recognize that this is an incredibly sensitive topic and a very difficult thing for a lot of people, men and women. It is a morally, ethically difficult place. But when we boil it down, women know what we are doing with our own bodies. We know what is best for our lives. We should be empowered to make decisions for ourselves with trusted people, with our healthcare providers, with our partners, with our families. And the government, frankly, has no place in that decision or that discussion.
It is a very difficult personal decision.
It is. And I think we get so stuck on a few very easy situations to target, and we will disregard it as immaturity or disrespect for your personhood and all of these things, when really I think I don't know that any person goes to make that decision willy-nilly, and it's not something that we should take lightly, and it's not something that can be boiled down to a few kind of poster situations. It's so complicated. It implicates the health of women themselves and the babies that they are trying or not trying to carry. It's so incredibly complicated that if we start making these blanket legislative decisions, it's going to have this impact that we can't actually predict how that's going to play out in this 2022 society.
With discussions that would really be just between, you know, a person who is pregnant and their doctor when things go awry very early stages.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's a very routine medical, often life-saving, or there's, you know, the fetus is not viable. You know, it's
Right.
things that really today, 10 years ago, 40 years ago, they didn't merit that conversation. Well, suddenly we're going to be having the discussions that they had. It's been, what, 50 years of Roe v. Wade, you know, and just, those are discussions that don't,
Right.
I knew we had reached a cornerstone with through the Women's March. We were hosting a conversation on abortion, a different conversation on abortion. People were making calls to legislators, and we had everybody introduce themselves in the room. And given the sensitivity of the issue, we're watching very carefully to see which. It was one woman stood up and she said, "I'm not pro-abortion." She said, "But I'm pro-choice," and I realized what that means now is I got to be pro-abortion.
Oh, interesting.
And it was so powerful, you know, not for herself, but for other people. You know, it was very powerful to have, you know.
Right, right. Because I think, you know, for an individual to say, if I were put in a compromised situation and a challenging situation, I would choose life for me, but I can't necessarily make that choice for other women. I appreciate that perspective because we just don't know what someone is carrying, whether they didn't feel safe saying no to their partner and it was just easier to, you know, all these, or that, you know, they have been trying to carry a child fully, healthily, and, you know, beyond 20 weeks learn of something that's going to make delivery impossible, or that this baby is going to be in pain until they die on their own. Like, it's just, and that's where, and we can get into the nitty gritty,
Right, but
it's bottom line, it is just so complicated, and women have to be empowered to make these decisions for themselves. They just have to. And that's why this song was as important as it was to me, because there are these laws that are just making it seemingly this simple decision of like, nope, we value life, so we're gonna, like, life, that's just inevitable. And it's just so much bigger than that.
and I think of the impact of the bounty hunter. It was, you can cause a lot of trouble for someone who may or may not have been pregnant, who may have had a miscarriage, all these different things,
Right.
because you're going to put it, you know, it is those witch hunts where you just, and there's no penalty, and if you guess right, you might get $10,000. You know, you just think of the impact of, and just pitting person against person that way is so.
Right. And that's another piece of the song that is, I mean, it's applicable to this whole conversation, but specifically in terms of the Texas Heartbeat Act. The last part of the song is essentially saying, once all of this is said and done, you will see that nobody is one. Like, you have effectively divided us, and nobody has won. There are no winners in this situation. It's just going to eat away at this democracy that we've created over the last, what, 250 years? Am I getting that right? A long time. This country has,
Yeah.
you know, it's so that's where this pitting citizen against citizen and trying to incentivize people to get after their neighbors. That is the most divisive thing that I can think of, and then rewarding this division just is so counterintuitive to me. I can't even believe that this is where we are.
You start by saying in Minnesota, where, I mean, they say we're safe here in Minnesota. I mean, it is, I think, but we're now pitting state against state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who gets in trouble if they pay for their niece to come to Minnesota to, who, you know, are we safe?
Yeah, it gets so complicated, and I can appreciate in many ways that, like it's a very large country. Sure, there are some things that the states can be in charge of and how things go. Like the needs in Minnesota are very different than the needs in Arkansas. I can recognize and appreciate that, but as far as healthcare goes, I don't understand why some states can decide that, they, I don't know. I can tell I feel very
Well,
passionate about this.
you know what's funny is that leads to
Oh,
some because you just shift a little bit because you are playing an interesting stage at the state fair because it's really a discuss. The whole day is guided to mental health issues, and I think that's
Yeah, and mental health was a topic that was very present in that first record, On the Shoulders of Giants. And in this next phase of music, there is plenty of presence there too. But I've just always felt it's another thing that I felt very strongly about is the conversation around mental health and accessibility to mental health care. And so we've done a couple of concerts, events for mental health awareness and different kind of fundraisers for mental health. So this day at the state fair is a fun day that there's a bunch of exhibitors from all around the state with different resources, and it's a whole day of programming from music to indigenous drum circles. The governor and lieutenant governor are going to come and make a proclamation, and so it's just this kind of mix of wonderful exhibitors and acts on the stage to have these important conversations about mental health. And I know I can speak from personal experience how much the overturning of Roe v. Wade has affected my mental health. And I am in a quote unquote safe state and have healthcare accessibility. And I'm fortunate to be in a position where I've got resources and all of these things that I shouldn't be one of the women who's like, oh, it's going to really affect me. But it is affecting all of us, whether or not we choose to address it or believe it. This is just where we all are now.
it's bodily autonomy, and they may be looking at abortion issues first, but that is a slippery slope.
It is. It is because yeah, if we're talking about body autonomy in general, I mean, it has so many implications, and it's horrifying to me that marriage and LGBTQIA rights are coming or potentially coming into question. It's just, I mean, how quickly are we running in the wrong direction?
And I think, as Heather said, your music is a point of discussion. Where people that it's a safe way to start a discussion.
And I know that I have a lot of opinions and I have a lot of feelings about things, and I make those pretty clear. But if I want it to be in a way that, yeah, can open up us at least having these conversations. Because in light of this Bounty Hunter production, I've had conversations with very close friends and family about this very sensitive topic, and some who are firmly in this pro-life camp, and some who are firmly in pro-choice. And it is so important that we talk to each other. I think the thing that was not the most alarming, but certainly significantly alarming after the Dobbs decision came out was how polluted my Facebook became with this. I can't talk to you then if you don't agree with me. Then don't even look in my direction. I can't have this conversation. And certainly there is a place for like, I am angry and grieving this decision and cannot have the conversation right now. But if moving forward we decide, well, we're not going to have these conversations with people who disagree with us, that's not productive. That's not helpful. What I want to be doing is having conversations with people who disagree with me and actually understand, why do you believe the things that you believe? Where are you coming from? What is your lived experience that is clearly different than mine? And let's talk about this. That's one of the things that I appreciate most about StoryCorps with on that NPR, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I think.
Having these people who come from different places just sit down and talk to each other. And that's something that we've been missing in this social media age and this anonymity online. And I remember as a kid being told, well, don't talk about politics and religion. And so I've been afraid to have these conversations when really we should have been equipping ourselves to handle the most difficult conversations respectfully and thoughtfully. And if ultimately we disagree, then we disagree. But then we've both learned something and we've both grown and have a deeper understanding of the world around us. So that's the hope with some of this music. I know this one is very opinionated, but I do hope that it makes a space for people to start having the conversation if they haven't already.
And I think something like it's 82 or 80% of Minnesotans believe in are pro-choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know that you get that many to like the Vikings on any given weekend. You know, that is a high percentage. It is a high percentage. But as you, yeah, you know, when I drive outside of the Twin Cities, you can see where most of those people are. So that's why I love the idea of being at the state fair, because that really is the great state get together, you know, the great
Yeah.
Minnesota get together,
Yeah.
and letting people have conversations. And sometimes it's safest to have a conversation with a stranger,
Mm-hmm.
you
Honestly,
know.
yeah,
It's because then you go back and nobody knows you asked those questions. You know,
right.
it's not like you asked them your junior year in high school. You know, I mean, no one
Yeah.
will, you know, and you can find out. So I hope that you get some of those discussions on at the state fair too.
Yeah, that's certainly the hope, and I think you tapped into something interesting about once you're out of the metro area. I mean, there are billboards all over the place about the Pro Life America. I know is an organization that I've seen
Yep.
frequently, and I think certainly, obviously, there is a presence that firmly, if we're looking at how we feel about this issue on a spectrum, firmly at the farthest end of this side of the spectrum, all life, pro life. But one of the things that I've found interesting in having these conversations since the decision came down is it is a very conflicted representation of what Americans actually think, because I think, was it Kansas that just voted on their,
Yes.
yes. So well, you take a traditionally conservative Republican state like Kansas, and it's just I think that was a really good case study for how complicated this issue is and how Americans know that it's not this black and white thing, and you can't just have this blanket statement. And so and that's another statistic that I had heard, is that the majority of Americans in some form or another do think that access to abortion is necessary. Where people draw those limits of, you know, trimesters or how far along, or like what are the circumstances around which one gets an abortion, those can all vary, but access to abortion overwhelmingly is something that most Americans see as a need in some capacity, which again points to why this is so complicated and why the government can't just say, oh, anyway.
I was going to say, keep writing your music. We need somebody to listen and break it down, seriously.
Well,
Such a safe way. I'm really eager to see the response after your video is released too, because I think it is so powerful.
thank
I'm
you.
excited to see what you
Thank you. I'm really excited about this video, and Owen put a lot of it together, and we got our friends and family at the end of this video. There are real life women that we know and love who have shown up, and so there's an effort to try and create this, like, okay, so women who are sitting in a challenging place right now, first of all, you are not alone, and then like I want people to stay passionate about these issues and to not. I think one of the things that plagues us the most is something happens, there's outrage, there's action on the outrage, protests, donations, Facebook posts, all these things, and then we get distracted and there's apathy and we adjust, and then something happens again. And then it's just we kind of get stuck in this with
wheel.
little to no real change. And so I want us to stay in this place of like, don't get comfortable, don't accept this. We have so much work ahead of us. Stay here. And then so that's the hope for after people watch this video. I want people to be feeling like, okay, well, now what do I do next? Who do I contact? Who do I support? How do I show up? Because the world is this place now where we can't just sit back and watch everything unfold. We have to participate. We have to I have to show up.
We don't have to listen to people say it is what it is. I want to punch out everyone that always says that. It is what it is. No.
How we make
No.
progress. That's not how we got. That's not how anything has ever happened. Just accepting the status quo. Absolutely not. I could not agree with you more.
Think you're gonna arm them to go then to the people running for offices for the midterm elections, another state fair activity.
I do. I feel fortunate about the timing of this video release because the midterms got the election all, or the primaries got the midterm election all, kind of back in our brains a little bit. And so I really hope that people get involved and at a local level too. If anything, we should learn that policy creation and elections at a local level matter more than just about anything.
Yeah, they really do. Get people to. Well, you're giving them the tools. You're giving them the tools to start the conversation, and that's a good thing. That's
I'm trying. I'm trying.
good. That's good. Well, I'm gonna. So you're at the state fair on the 29th. So
Yep.
that's good,
Yep.
and we're gonna look forward. I mean, we've had a sneak preview, so we can say that the video is amazing, but other folks can see it on September 16th, and I think people will be. I
Can
mean,
you- I
it's
was
a
going to
total-
ask where, oh, sorry, Ann. I was just going to ask if you can say where you are at 3 at the state fair, where they can
Yes.
find you too.
Yep, it's the Dan Patch Park stage, so it's right outside of the grandstand, and I think not too far from. I don't know how familiar people are with the state fair, but there's this kind of big open space where there's a bunch of exhibitors who have their own little tents, and then the big stage right kind of outside of the grandstand, the bridge that goes into the grandstand. So
on the way to the Midway by the beer garden,
yeah, yep, not far from there.
by the Star Tribune building, or
Yes.
so I've heard.
Actually, yep, it's right on the backside of the Star Tribune building. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so that main quad street. So
I
it's.
was going to say, truth be told, Ann does scavenger hunts there, so she is.
I know the fair.
Oh man, that's impressive. I am a state fair lover in a very big way. So I'll be there performing on the 29th, but that is not my only time at the fair.
No, I will.
Fit in a little more.
I got to look at my work schedule. You may see me on the 29th because I'll be there a few times.
That would be great. That would be fun.
Good. That's good. Also, thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for making music that is really making a difference.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks for making the time to talk about all of this. It's complicated and it's not getting any easier, so we might as well talk about it and figure out how we're going to move forward. But I really appreciate the work that both of you two do in lifting up local music and highlighting stuff like this. I just very much appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks.